You could hear it before you were through the door, a low electric grind, deep and steady, pulling the smell of roasted coffee beans through the whole front of the store. 8 o'clock coffee in the red bag, ground fresh right there at the front counter. Your mother grabbed a cart, metal, child seat up front, one wheel that always pulled hard to the left, and you were in. The floor was polished linoleum. Fluorescent lights hummed above every aisle. Something with strings and no words played through a speaker near the ceiling, and underneath all of it was the sound of the register up front, mechanical and ringing, the kind of sound a building makes when people are still working inside it. That was the sound of a grocery store in 1973. Somebody killed this place, and the weapon was the size of a pack of gum. Before we get to the gum, you need to remember what this store felt like when it was still yours, because what they replaced it with looks the same from the outside. Same building sometimes, same parking lot, but the people inside are gone. And the food on the shelves is not the same food. The produce section was up front near the entrance, and it was smaller than anything you see today. There were no kiwis, no mangoes, no avocados unless you lived in Southern California. In winter, the bins held potatoes, onions, cabbage, carrots, and apples. That was the selection. Everything was loose, not bagged, not wrapped in plastic. You picked up each apple and weighed it on the hanging scale and wrote the price on a twist tie. The honor system. Nobody checked. The tomatoes were always iceberg and the lettuce was always pale, and nobody used the word organic because that word did not exist in a grocery store yet. But the tomatoes in July were good. Your mother knew which Saturdays to buy them and which Saturdays to skip. The produce manager knew too, and he would shake his head when she reached for a bad week and steer her toward the canned aisle instead. That kind of knowledge does not come from a training manual. That is a man who has been standing in the same store for 15 years. A stock clerk worked the aisles with a Garvey price gun, a heavy metal stamper loaded with purple ink. He pressed it against every can and every box, one at a time, and the sound it made was a heavy metallic clack that echoed down the aisle. When prices changed, he walked the store again and stamped new numbers on top of old ones. 3 layers of purple ink on a can of Campbell's soup. That was inflation you could see and feel under your thumb. The meat counter ran along the back wall. You took a number from the red dispenser and waited your turn. The butcher stood behind the glass in a white coat, usually stained, sometimes heavily, and when your number came up, he looked at your mother and asked what she needed. He did not scan anything. He cut it. Ground beef came off the block right in front of you. He wrapped it in white butcher paper, wrote the weight and price with a grease pencil, and slid it across the counter. If your mother was a regular, she got the better cuts, not because she asked for them, because he already knew. He knew what she cooked on Thursdays. He set it aside before she walked in the door. That butcher is the first person who disappeared. He didn't retire. A corporate operations office decided it was cheaper to cut the meat at a centralized processing plant, wrap it in plastic on a styrofoam tray, and ship it to the store already weighed and priced. One morning, the white coat was gone, the counter glass was dark, and your mother was standing in front of a refrigerator case, picking up plastic packages with nobody behind them. The meat looked the same. It was not the same. She could not tell you the day it changed, only that at some point the pork chops stopped tasting the way she remembered. In a moment, I am going to tell you the exact date the cashier up front became obsolete. But first, you need to understand what those register keys sounded like when they were still being played by hand. The cashier at your mother's grocery store knew every price in the building, not the popular items. Every item. She could ring up a full cart without looking at the keys, grabbing cans with one hand, typing with the other, sliding everything down the counter in one continuous motion while carrying on a conversation about the weather. Experienced cashiers were fast enough that watching them work was a kind of performance. The register was mechanical, and each keystroke made a sharp click that echoed off the linoleum. The cash drawer sprang open at the end with a bell that rang once. People chose their lane the way you choose a barber. Regulars knew which cashier was fastest, and the fastest cashier knew every regular by name. That speed and that memory became worthless on June 26, 1974. At 8:01 that morning, inside a Marsh supermarket in Troy, Ohio, a cashier scanned a 10-pack of Wrigley's Juicy Fruit chewing gum across a laser reader. It was the first product in American history to be rung up by a universal product code, a set of black lines on a white label. The barcode. Nobody in the grocery industry called this the end of anything. They called it progress. Faster checkouts, fewer pricing errors, no more memorizing. The cashier no longer needed to know a single number. She just needed to drag the item across a glass panel and wait for the beep. Within 10 years, every major chain in the country had switched to scanners. The woman who could ring up a full cart from memory was replaced by a high school kid watching a screen. That is what progress looked like from behind the register. And the barcode was only the first thing they took. The quiet corporate buyout of your mother's Saturday morning happened aisle by aisle, and the most devious part was how they convinced her she was actually getting a better deal. If your family shopped at the right store, you collected stamps. S and H green stamps came in long perforated strips at the checkout, and your mother brought them home in an envelope or wadded up in the bottom of her purse. Your job was to lick them and paste them into the books. That glue had a taste you have never forgotten, slightly sweet, slightly papery, and it stuck to your tongue for an hour after you were done. You sat at the kitchen table with a wet sponge if your mother was smart about it, or you licked every last one if you were 8 years old and nobody told you otherwise. Book after book. Green stamps pressed into rows, stacked on a shelf in the hall closet until there were enough to mean something. At the Redemption Center, those books turned into real things. Toasters, fishing rods, silverware sets, table lamps. You studied the catalog for weeks before you went. Kids pressed their faces to the glass cases and pointed. One woman on the internet says she inherited a KitchenAid stand mixer her mother-in-law bought with green stamps in the 1970s. That mixer is still running. In the 1960s, S&H printed more stamps than the United States Postal Service. That is not a figure of speech. The company physically printed and distributed more individual stamps than the federal government's mail system. It was a brilliant, undigitized corporate data capture program disguised as a game and fueled entirely by paper, paste, and the saliva of children. People never stopped wanting the stamps. Grocery chains just found a cheaper way to track you. A plastic card, a magnetic strip, a computer that tracked what your mother bought without anyone licking anything. Publix dropped the green stamp program in 1987 after 32 years. The other chains followed. Your mother got a keychain card. The company got a database. The cereal aisle was where you made your case. The boxes were at eye level for a reason. Bright colors, cartoon characters, and the promise of a toy buried somewhere inside the bag. Captain Crunch, Count Chocula, Fruit Loops, Lucky Charms. You wanted all of them. Your mother wanted Cheerios. The negotiation usually ended with one box of sugar cereal and one box of whatever she decided was healthy, and you accepted it because you knew the toy was in the sugar box, and that was the only thing that mattered on Saturday morning in front of the television. Inflation was hitting that aisle harder every month. Prices did not creep in the 1970s, they jumped. A box of cereal that cost 89 cents in January might cost $1.19 by June. Your mother noticed. Every shopper noticed. The weekly grocery bill that used to be around $30 climbed to $40, then $50, and the list got shorter, but the coupons got thicker. Canned goods at 19 cents each became survival buying. Your mother stocked the pantry the way other people stocked a shelter, 10 cans of Campbell's soup at a time, because next month those cans would cost more. Store brands appeared on the shelves in plain white packaging with black block letters. No mascots, no cartoons, just the words cornflakes in a font that looked like it came off a government form. Buying store brands said something about your family's situation, and most kids in the 1970s understood that without anyone explaining it. The bag boy was usually a teenager earning minimum wage. He stood at the end of the register and packed your groceries into brown paper bags with a system. Heavy cans on the bottom, bread and eggs on top, nothing crushed, nothing leaking. A good bag boy could fill 6 bags in the time it took the cashier to make change. When he finished, he stacked the bags into the cart, pushed it out to the parking lot, loaded everything into the trunk of your mother's station wagon, and sometimes got a quarter for it. Sometimes he got nothing and said thank you anyway. Those bags went home and became book covers in September. Your mother ironed them flat, and you wrapped your school books and wrote your name on the front in marker. That bag had a second life before it ever touched a trash can. The bag boy is the person most people forgot disappeared. They did not even bother replacing him with a machine. They just eliminated the job. Stores cross-trained the cashier to scan and bag at the same time, or they installed a metal rack at the end of the lane and told you to do it yourself. The checkout lane that once had 2 people working it, a cashier who knew your name, and a kid who carried your groceries to the car, now has 0 people working it. You scan your own items across a glass panel, and a recorded voice tells you there is an unexpected item in the bagging area. Your mother wrote the grocery list on the back of an envelope. She organized it by store and by aisle because she was hitting more than one. Wednesday or Thursday, the newspaper landed on the porch thick with grocery inserts, and she sat at the kitchen table with scissors, clipping coupons and circling prices. Safeway had ground beef on sale. A&P had the better price on eggs. She planned the route the way a general plans a supply line. Gas was expensive during the oil crisis, and this was before mega corporations standardized the prices across city lines. Where you shopped actually mattered. Saturday morning, she put on shoes and lipstick. Your father drove. The kids sat in the back of the station wagon and did not touch anything. Going to the grocery store was not a quick stop. It was a ritual. The punctuation at the end of the week. You saw your neighbors in the cereal aisle. A man in the produce section was smoking a cigarette, and nobody said a word about it because there were ashtrays mounted on the end caps, and that was just how it was. Your mother talked to the produce manager about the tomatoes, and he told her which ones came in that morning, and he set the good ones aside for Saturday regulars. At checkout, she paid with a check. She wrote it out by hand, showed her driver's license, and the cashier checked the name against a handwritten list of bad checks taped to the side of the register. The total was written on a paper receipt. You could see every item and its price. Math errors happened. Sometimes they went your way, sometimes they did not. On the walk out, The bag boy loaded everything into the trunk, and your mother gave him a quarter, and he said thank you even when she gave him nothing. If you rode under the cart while your mother shopped, or if your first job was bagging groceries at one of these stores, tell me in the comments. I want to hear the store name and the year. But the name on the sign above that store was about to change, and it was going to change more than once. A&P was once the largest grocery chain on earth, 15,709 stores at its peak. The name stood for the Great Atlantic and Pacific Tea Company, and if you grew up anywhere on the East Coast, your mother almost certainly shopped there. The coffee grinder at the front of the store was grinding 8 o'clock beans, and the smell hit you in the parking lot, and that smell meant Saturday. The company started dying the way most of them do. The stores got older, the competition built bigger lots and wider aisles in the suburbs. A&P responded by cutting costs instead of fixing the stores. The butcher went first, then the bag boy. Then the prices stopped being competitive, and the customers followed the prices to whoever beat them. The coffee grinder was still running, but fewer people were walking past it. The regional chains disappeared the same way. The name above the door changed from something local to something national. The new cashier had never seen your mother before. The new produce manager had been transferred in from a store in another state. The building still sold groceries, but the store that knew your name became a store that knew your card number. Those are not the same thing. What Walmart did in 1988 made everything that came before it look like a slow leak in a tire. Walmart opened its first Supercenter in Washington, Missouri in 1988. A full grocery store and a full department store in one building under one roof. The prices were lower than anything a regional chain could match, because Walmart's distribution network was bigger than most countries' supply systems. Within a decade, Walmart was the largest grocery seller in the United States. If you read the business papers, they will tell you Walmart simply outmaneuvered the regional chains with superior logistics. Your mother would have said it differently. She would have said the store where they knew her name closed 6 months after the Walmart opened, and nobody from Walmart ever learned her name or asked what she was cooking on Thursday. Kroger survived by buying everyone else. Ralph's in 1998, Fred Meyer in 1999, Harris Teeter in 2014. Every one of those names used to mean something to a family in a specific city. Every one of them is Kroger now. The sign changed, the uniforms changed, the coffee grinder disappeared from the front of the store because the new corporate manual did not include one. Nobody in the new headquarters had ever heard of the produce manager who set aside Saturday tomatoes, and nobody asked. The independent grocers went faster. The family-owned IGA, where the owner extended credit to farmers and let them pay at harvest. The neighborhood store where the old man behind the counter knew your grandfather's name and still called your mother honey when she was 45 years old. Those stores could not survive a price war with a company that bought peanut butter by the freight train. They closed quietly. One week the lights were on. The next week a for lease sign was in the window and the parking lot was empty. A&P filed for bankruptcy in 2010. The company that once ran 15,709 stores could not pay its bills. It came out of bankruptcy 2 years later, smaller, weaker, bleeding locations. In July of 2015, A&P filed again. There was no coming back this time. The stores were auctioned off in pieces. Albertsons bought 76, Stop and Shop took 25, Key Food picked up 23. The rest were closed and emptied. Nobody announced the last day. There was no ceremony. The lights went off, the coolers were unplugged, and the building sat empty until somebody turned it into a phone store or an urgent care clinic or nothing at all. 15,709 stores. Your mother's store, her butcher, her cashier, her bag boy, her Saturday morning. All of it sold at auction to 3 companies that wanted the real estate. If you shopped at A&P or Piggly Wiggly or Winn-Dixie or Safeway or IGA in the 1970s, I want you to tell me the name of your store in the comments. Tell me the city. Tell me the butcher's name if you still remember it. Tell me what your mother put on the list every single Saturday morning. Tell me which aisle smelled like coffee. Saturday morning, 1973. Your mother pulls into the lot and you can hear the coffee grinder through the propped open door before she turns off the engine. The cart with the bad wheel is right there by the entrance. The butcher is already behind the counter sharpening his knife. The cashier is on her second cart of the morning and she has not looked down at the keys once. Your mother checks her lipstick in the rearview mirror. She takes the envelope with the list and the coupons and her checkbook off the dashboard. You are 6 years old and you are riding in the front of the cart, and the store smells like roasted coffee and floor wax and cold meat and cardboard. The produce man is stacking tomatoes and he waves at your mother because she has been coming every Saturday since before you were born. He already set aside the ones she likes. At that exact moment, a cashier in Troy, Ohio, is getting ready to scan a 10-pack of Wrigleys across a laser reader for the first time in history. In 5 years, the butcher's white coat will come off for good. Within a decade, the Supercenter will arrive, and eventually this entire company will be auctioned off in pieces to 3 corporations that do not know your mother's name. You are 6 years old and she is handing you a cookie from the bakery counter, and everything in this store is exactly where it belongs. That is what they took. Next time, we are going to talk about the people standing in those aisles. Every person in a 1973 grocery store was thin, not dieting, not exercising, not counting anything. They were thin because the food on those shelves had not been engineered yet. Someone changed the formula and an entire country gained 30 pounds in a single generation. That story starts with a man in Washington who decided corn should be cheaper than water.